Good morning, everybody. My name's Ellisa Cooper, and this is Cooking in Quarantine. So today, as promised, we're going to be learning how to make my amazing version of lasagna. I'm still killing some bugs, so I do apologize for seeming particularly murderous today. Hello, Tim. How are you? How's the weather down in Florida? It may seem strange to be making lasagna this time of year, but as you may or may not know, a handsome boyfriend and I have, for one single reason, have been quarantined separately for the last 74 days. So he told me today that the countdown is on for his arrival. His favorite thing that I make is lasagna. So I'm going to teach everybody how to make my lasagna. There are a couple of things that make it unique. One is that I use sage sausage, breakfast sausage. Y'all, I'm not even sure who Parks are, but it's the closest thing to like a Jimmy Dean slice and eat, make breakfast sausage style sausage that you can get up here. Normally, I would have had Mom and Daddy send me some of the good stuff that the Amish people make for them, but I wasn't that ahead of myself, so there you go. So there really are very few ingredients here, right? Italian spice, crushed red pepper flakes, salt, pepper, onion, garlic, San Marzano tomatoes. That's really it. So making the sauce is not a big deal. Hello, Michael. Now you might want to, what you're doing, but I'm going to probably put a little bit of tomato paste and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, just because those two things, you know, people have different ways of seeing things, but just a little extra richness of flavor is what I'm going to be looking for there. And then what's really amazing about it is how I build it, and I build it differently than most people do. I am using lasagna noodles that are ready to eat. I will just wet them. That's all. That's why I love them. If you don't do anything to them, just wet them as you're building your lasagna. So anyway, I guess there's no reason to do anything except get started. And like I said, we're looking at just a handful of ingredients here. If you prefer to use fresh herbs, you can. My only caveat is, it's my experience that fresh oregano is wildly more flowery than you probably think of it as being. So be careful with that. I don't really generally enjoy using it because it's just so powerful. And so here's how I do my onions. I always cut the tail end off, leaving the root end on so it will hold the onion together, and then peel the paper off, the papery skin off. It's getting hot in here. It's getting hot here too. It's evidently going to be in the 80s next week here in New York, and I don't like it that warm, frankly. In a perfect world, it would be like 70 and lower than 50% humidity, and I like it cold, so I don't have any problem with that. So guys, here we go. Here's how I cut an onion up, if anybody cares. I follow the ribs somewhat and just make cuts into them, however big you want the pieces to be. Now these, of course, are going to cook down several times, so they don't need to be very small, right? We're going to cook them in the sauce, and then they're going to cook again while the cheese and stuff learns to boil after we put it all together. One of the great things about this sauce, because this is my mom's sauce, and so we would always kill a pig, kill a cow every year, and so when the sausage came to us each year, Mom would just sit back and we would make big giant tubs of this bolognese sauce and put it into pint containers and put it in the deep freeze so that we could whip up as fast as you could thaw out a pint container of sauce. You could pretty much have a lasagna put together. So it was always a special treat, and I think that I may have mentioned this, but Evidently, at some point in history, my mom's lasagna was the most commented on recipe ever submitted to the Atlanta Constitution. So now that may have been before the digital age, and that may no longer be the case. But anyway, that was the case at some point, and once you've made this, you will understand why. So I'm going to turn my heat on my pan over here. I'm going to get my onions started cooking. When those onions start to sort of soften up, and, you know, of course, we're not going to caramelize them here, otherwise we'd be here for a month of Sundays. But we're going to get those started here in just a second. So I'm going to give myself a turn or two of olive oil in the pan. And I have a little puccini playing. I figured that since I did such a poor job of picking the right music for Taco Tuesday yesterday, I'd do a little better today, but you can't really hear it. And there we go. So I'm just waiting for this to warm up. And while I'm doing that, I guess I can pop off a couple of bits. Hello, Gina and Sale and Stephanie. Hello, guys. So the way I feel about a lot of this is that it has to do with what's your palate, right? What makes this is what makes it. And so the little tweaks, pardon me, that you might make to make it more to your liking are just that much better. So I'm a real garlicky girl, so I'm going to put several cloves of garlic in this. And I am a spicy girl, so I'm going to put a generous palm full of chili peppers in here. So this is heating up. I'm going to turn my heat down to a more moderate. Oh, look at me with my bench scrape. Oh. And you know, of course, I could have already had all those onions in here by now, but that's okay. I'll do it so much more neatly now. Sizzle, sizzle. There we go. I do like this thing. It's very efficient. I like it. So there's this, and then while we're doing this, I can smash some garlic. Yikes. Perfect. It is warming up in here. I wish I almost, right before we started, I thought, should I prop the front door open and make sure I get a cross breeze? And I'm thinking, my God, I should have. Maybe what I just have to do is take my sweater off. It's funny, Hugo had said to me a few years ago, he said, honey, in all the years I've known you, I've never seen you leave the house without a sweater, regardless of the season. And that's true, because when you live in New York, you can be out in a 105-degree day and walk into a lobby and it's 62. I mean, and really you go, you contract. So maybe I am going to have to take this off. I don't know. If my bra shows, I apologize. It is suddenly very warm in here. And very good. So I'm just peeling off my garlic while I'm leaving my onions alone for a second to start their cooking process. And, oh, I really probably should have done this before, y'all. Having a good time. Hello, Caroline. I might have to decamp to Caroline soon because I need a swim. And I don't think they're going to open any pools here around here. It's also sticky. I know that there's a reason why garlic is so sticky, and I always forget what that is. That's not like me to forget things, so I'm going to have to go and teach myself that today, later today. All right, maybe if I smash it again, it'll release. Here we go. Perfect. There we go. That's good. So I'm going to put that there. Give that a smash. So anyway, my onions are cooking. I'm about to, maybe in the next 3 years, get the skins off the garlic. And as soon as that is the case, we'll start putting some sausage. For those of you who are late arrivals, one of the things that makes my lasagna unique is that I don't use hamburger or veal or any of the kinds of things you might use. I use like breakfast sausage, what in the South we call sage sausage. So if you can't find it, because you sometimes have to go, I have to go to marginalized neighborhoods. Is that too mean to say? In order to find this product, or to New Jersey. That's the other place where I can find this kind of sausage. So anyway, it doesn't require me to pay a toll to get to the nearest Western Beef in my neighborhood. This is where, if you remember yesterday, I told you I saw two old ladies tossing paper products at each other and screaming in Spanish. It was not pretty. So here we go. I've got my onions are cooking well now. And so they're not quite translucent, but they are cooking. And I let them sit there just long enough so that a little bit of them got browned a little bit. Now that's not really caramelizing, but because you can't keep that up for a long time. But that's me eviscerating myself. So those are going well. They need a few more minutes to cook. And I'm going to slice open the side of this with a knife I'm less likely to cut my guts out with. I'm going to put the first little layer of flavor here, right? So a little salt and pepper on the onions. This might be, oh, it has been opened before, but that's okay. It's still pretty darn new. So I'm going to start with just like maybe a half teaspoon. And like Rachel says, give them a good pinch so that you break them up and get the oils in there moving. And I can go there so I don't forget what I'm doing the next time and forget and just dump a quart of it into my hand. And move these around. I still want them to be a little better cooked than this before I put the sausage in here. And then I'm not going to put the garlic in until after the sausage is in and really cooking well, because, you know, garlic can brown and burn pretty easily. Hello, Julie. Hello, Olivier. So, guys, if you're on the Upper West Side, go to Amelie. They're doing cute little things like picnic boxes with a bottle of wine, cheese, and charcuterie that you can take right into the park with you. So now, as we are allowed to, maybe not really allowed to, but maybe taking a little bit more liberty here in New York and moving around with a little freedom, maybe you might want to come from downtown and go up to Central Park for the day. That might be a fun outing for those of us that are sitting around here. So I'm gonna, while I'm here, I'm gonna trim off my root ends of my garlic. And since I didn't do that before, and put those in my scrap pile. And now I think my onions are looking pretty darn good. I like the looks of them. And there's a good bit of like onion goo in the bottom of my pan that I want to intermingle with my sausage. So let's take this. Sausage. Gross hands. Let's see. Get these clean. So, you know, here we are. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Phil. So here we are. I've been here looking for hand lotion all these 75 days, 74 days for me today. And I finally just said, ugh, and I ordered hand lotion. And now everywhere I look, there's hand lotion. Ain't that just the way? So I'm going to break my sausage up a little bit and let this start to brown. I've pushed my onions off to one side, and I'm going to let them eventually commingle with my sausage. Here we go. Alright, so now once this gets in here and I get these broken up, I need to actually get a second little wedge in here if I can. It'll just break up more easily if I hold it a little bit better. There we go. So yeah, you just want to break it up so that it can start to cook. Excellent. All right, so that's in a good starting place, and I'm going to walk away from that. And while this is starting to brown, I'm going to show you what's remarkable about this lasagna. So now normally when you do a lasagna, you're going to use ricotta, mozzarella, and Parmesan, right? So here's the difference. Always fresh mozzarella, never supermarket mozzarella. Always real Reggiano Parmesan, except no substitutes. And instead of ricotta, sour cream. It's absolutely amazing. It is as amazing as, it's amazing. That's all I can say. It's amazing. It just adds to the flavor in a way that you can't garlic up ricotta to taste as good as sour cream. And how southern is that, right? Put a little sour cream on it. So that's your layers. We're going to make this basically like you would a bolognese. Onions, meat, tomatoes, garlic, Italian spice, plenty of nice red pepper for me because I like it spicy, and with the sour cream and the Parmesan and the mozzarella, you've got so much fat to cut the spice, and it's just absolutely fabulous. So now this meat has cooked up beautifully and quite quickly. So let's get a second layer of spice on. So a little salt there, a little pepper here. I'm just putting it on the meaty side. And I'm gonna now pop out my brand new red chili flakes. Oh, that all came off in one piece. And I'm gonna start off with here, what's that, about half a teaspoon maybe a little less. There we go, get that all in there. This out because that's okay. We'll just keep that there for the moment. That's just extra, right? And I'm gonna do here, because this is flavoring the meat, I'm gonna do a pretty good sized handful. I'm gonna call this a tablespoon and a half to, what was that, a pound of meat, one good sized onion, right? And I'm just gonna let that go right on there, and all of that moisture that's cooking out of the meat, all right, is going to suck up all of that flavor. And here we go. Now it's time for our garlic, which I'm just gonna run my knife through real fast. I did just start doing a mani-pedi for myself today, so if I seem a little shy with the knife, it's because I put the first layer of fingernail polish on, and I'm hoping that I'm able to actually get myself a date night worthy manicure and pedicure. I'm very excited. I haven't been really dressed up in, well, 74 days, unless you count putting on a silk top with my shorts and my Crocs for you all today, dressing up. So here we go. Excellent. I've got little bits of garlic here. Nice, nice. Look at how exciting it is to once again use my little bench scrape. I love toys. Yes, I do. Luckily, the toys I like cost like $5.49 as opposed to those that cost thousands and thousands and millions. And so, yes, totally. Now I'm going to start folding my onions back into the meat. Oh, that looks great. So now my onions have got some color to them. I like that because I think it adds to, again, depth of flavor. I'm just always thinking each time you put another fistful of herbs and spices on here, you've got a little bit more. Now I'm going to do a little funny thing that I do when I want to make it super duper rich. So I'm going to push a little bit of this meat back. I'm going to take a little splooge of tomato paste, and I'm going to let that sit there in the juice that's in the pan. I'm going to put a couple of shakes of Worcestershire. Worcestershire is nothing but umami, just flavor, right? It's the same thing as in Asian cooking is fish sauce. It's literally fish sauce. What is it? Anchovies and salt and stuff, right? So I'm just going to let that I'm going to smush that so that becomes just a little extra yummy richness. Again, layering flavor. And this is, you know, my very own thing that I do just because I think everybody should have a recipe that is all your own, right? Next, San Marzano crushed tomatoes. Again, this is a kind of like, you know, your mozzarella needs to be, my mozzarella came from Arthur Avenue. It's real aged Reggiano Parmesan cheese. I really think it makes the difference to, you know, spend the extra, $1 maybe on the San Marzano tomatoes. I have crushed ones. It's nice of them to smash them up for me. And I'm going to pour that right in there, a little bit at a time, and fold it all in. Here we go. There we go. So this can take a second if you, I mean, I don't want to slosh it all over the stove. So this is round 1 of incorporating tomato sauce. Nicely done. And as you hear, it's cooking up. It's in a storm in here. And then I'm going to put the rest of it in. This whole, what size can is this? 28 ounces, the whole lot. There we go, there we go. Oh, yes. So there are some ingredients, I think, especially if you're going to do things that come out of a can, it certainly is worth the extra 50 cents or $1 or whatever it is to just take it up a notch and do the classic traditional thing that goes with the thing. So this, of course, has to simmer here. And because we're going to have this for Sunday supper, I am going to let this simmer, come down to room temperature, and I'm going to close it up really tight and put it in the fridge. This is Wednesday, so then on Friday I will build this and let it sit in the fridge in plastic in the pot waiting to go, and then anytime on Sunday when we're ready to go, we'll just pop it in there. The one thing I would say is always make sure you have a little extra sauce just around the edges, because you want to make sure that there's plenty of liquid for it to suck up. But that's something that we'll do when we build it later, right? I think that's a great idea. So I'm going to let this, I will not let this cook very long, because again, I want to keep, I don't want to let too much of the moisture evaporate, because that moisture is what's going to cook our lasagna noodles, right? And the less water or anything that you put in this when you put it in the pan and build it, then the less you're going to dilute all of this flavor that you've built. So as soon as I get all of this kind of stirred around one last time here, get that last bit of stuff incorporated, I'm going to get just a little spoon and see how I did on my flavors. And I'm going to turn this down, or I'm going to have little dots of oh, that's very good. And the tomato hasn't even really fully cooked. So I feel really good about that. I'm not getting the kind of burst of heat that I would like to have, but I might go back and tweak that just a little bit at the end. So there you go. So let's see. Yes, there are lots of Kentuckians on here. Gracie Gilbert and Carolyn are from my hometown, as is Tim. And Kathy is my cousin, who has moved to other parts of Kentucky. Kevin grew up with me. Olivier is from France, who I know from here. And Julie is from Georgia, but I know her from here. Phil also from my hometown. Caroline I know from here. Rosemary lives in Canada. And Sale I know from here. And Kathy I grew up with. And Michael. So there's a lot of Chicken Bristle folk on here. If you know where Chicken Bristle is, you definitely grew up with me. If you've heard of Chicken Bristle but can't find it on a map, that means you've known me for a long time. So there you go, guys. It really couldn't be simpler to get this started. So maybe you want to get a nice big meat sauce going. I was thinking today, though, that something that might be really good is to make a vegetarian lasagna, but instead of, because I wouldn't recommend sour cream for a vegetarian lasagna, but you go back to the ricotta, what if we did a lot of grated garlic and lemon zest and made a really super lemony ricotta to be one of the layers with the mozzarella and the parm. I think that would be really great too. So anyway, guys, that's my story. This is the start of how to make my lasagna, and we will come back in the next 24 to 48 hours to finish putting it all together. So if you want, go get you some good mozzarella, some perfect parm, a little sour cream, and some sausage, and you too can have, oh yeah, don't forget the garlic, the onions, and the tomatoes. But anyway, it really isn't a lot. It doesn't take a lot to make, and that's why I think that lasagna is such a beloved comfort food, that especially now that we don't have to boil these noodles, then it's really super, super simple. You just do, I think, have to plan that ahead a little bit, because this sauce does need to cook, and it needs to cool, and it needs to chill, ideally, just for it to all come together. And then if you can build your casserole, if you will, a day or two in advance, that again makes everything meld together even better. So I love it. I can't recommend it highly enough. And once you start thinking about this, then you can get really creative, right? And start talking about greens and mushrooms and lemon ricotta. So that might be next week. So anyway, guys, that's my story. I'm very excited. I am in the countdown not only to handsome boyfriend returning, but I'm very excited about the fact that on Monday coming is the 30th anniversary of my arriving to live in New York. So I am kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to do for that. And it might involve, somebody said, what's the first restaurant you went to? And I can't really remember the first restaurant I went to. I remember the first meal I had, and so that might inform what we have. So anyway, guys, I thank you all. It's a beautiful day. If it's a beautiful day where you are, get outside. Spread the love. Love yourself. And then when you love yourself, you can love your neighbor properly. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.